We can create our own content, and we should, in some way, somehow. However, you can do such while being unified under one cause. Nita is the missing binding factor between us all. Missing, although already here, simply the power of recognition into what you shall do with it is up to your willpower. However, despite talking about this power and that some form of power, what if we were to really take our brains away from all this, away from the struggles, the confusion, the complexion, the people all over the place and words all over the place, used or not? To release ourselves into this world, we aren't some beast. You may say we are in nature, to which we may always be, or you may say sure that we aren't, but that it requires understanding. The truth is, it does. However, if we were to simply have the simple needs and live a simple life, one without boundary or limit from external forces, we would, moreover, be pure and perhaps even more innocent. However, understand that our understanding of this complex world within itself does take a toll, that it does create complications even if you wanted to simplify it down. Now, doing this with simple needs already fulfilled makes life indeed far less complicated. However, to the extent that you may learn less or may learn more. The irony lives in an individual for the learning less, where an individual perhaps is more along going with the flow. This term is not bad. Who wouldn't want to let the wind guide their path? No input involved, no stress, no worry. If anything, greater health, and they know it. However, those who go with the flow may not know what to do when that flow suddenly stops or gets interrupted. And ironically, those who then don't go with the flow and go the extra mile, they may actually have potentially greater health, again, if not worse. Like I say usually, understanding the irony helps us understand the world at large. Indeed, the world of mystery we never knew fully, the world that is of such a bigger picture, of a world look upon life than claiming to know it all and assuming there is no mystery to be solved. It's one to know there is mystery, another to know that such mystery can be solved. Now sure, some mysteries may never be fully solved, as there's question as to why you would fully want to solve anything anyways. Leaving room for improvement is like building onto your flowing path or forming an alternative route for different times calls for different measures. The adaptability is often that of which is found in nature, and that is one big thing that may be of the flow I speak upon so ironically and contradictory. Everything I say can be a contradiction with a truly open mind. But let's understand for a moment during this time of word flow, the flow of one who adapts to nature in the wild. When I say nature is the answer, one may presume there being a connection to our roots, to our ancestors, and more importantly, to our instincts in living more simply. Indeed, if life is simpler, all is simpler within. But that doesn't ever mean you won't run into something out of your scope. our eyes may only perceive so far. Alike, these words may only speak on the behalf of so much, that I direct people simply to the source, nature itself. And when you do, you may not understand, but you may certainly become more in touch and perhaps gain more clarity and sensitivity, also dependent on previous conditions. Learning one of the wild is only one part of the restoration of nature in life. In other words, how wild is it that I can go from topic to topic, or I could just go with it? Bringing these ideas together, is it a coincidence that wild is associated with off-path or not going with the flow? See, there's an extent to which you will always go with some flow. Otherwise, there may not be enough base to flow with at all. You may become stuck and perhaps even at despair for a flow to come take you again. Is it a coincidence that there's such a phrase called brainwashing? So, disrupting flow by rewashing, redistributing the base. Often, in this case, you may refer to it symbolically as water. And doesn't that make sense, being that water is considered being most of life, and most of life has mostly water? So, to brainwash, perhaps, may be seen as the equivalent to life distribution. In other words, where is your conscious energy going? Is there any life even left in you? Because you can't even flow for your own when your own body contains a flow of water and blood, to that akin of being circulation. And what happens when any one thing is in circulation? It becomes the flow, to which most of life is dependent on it. Therefore, what circulates in society is what determines life distribution, into where energy is being inputted and outputted, imported and exported. And what do we see in our world today? Either extreme conformist or extreme non-conformist, and those in the middle are confused or inactive. Where is your energy going? What energy is going to you? We see energy being a growing theme. We see immigration being a growing theme. This is no coincidence. That is despite these conditions being naturally solved by ridding of the one binding belief, that is, of authority, and rather by setting the authority to nature and truth itself. However, with that said, energy is ultimately of nature and could potentially be harnessed non-invasively. Indeed, even if you were to take energy in the lens of food, and immigration is ultimately not a concern when all beings of Earth understand where they truly live, in nature. By less focus on certain things as such, indeed a simple life, a more intended life may actually come about, ironically. In other words, coexistence is possible in any degree, but races will still often stick with their own. All the paths that were created by the ruling elites only matter to distinguish here because they are under statism and of denaturing. Whereas all the paths that are meant to be, that naturally create openings, that naturally create balance, that teaches us about blockades, and what may seem as harsh realities now are simply easier to obtain, and we can do so more easily. It's all of nature and what is simply here and present. In any society, no matter what state, balance and cycle is bound to happen in cause and effects. It is in the very nature of nature itself for this cause and effect. Therefore, if at any time you are washed or flowing with the wrong path, the right direction is still within your grasp, and the grasp becomes firmer and easier to reach as long as you are able to listen, learn, and can reach, can grasp, can understand. So even if one is of the wild and says that he is only of instinct, he too is still of understanding. He too is still under the same natural laws. What's wrong with being wild anyways when we consider most of all of nature as the wilderness anyways? It, by its very meaning, resembles mystery and journey, and not knowing. So am I saying that action is bad, or that you should not be knowing? No, but I am saying that you don't need to know it all, or that you need to act upon all. Water flows under certain conditions, water evaporates under certain conditions, but it always exists, and its essence is everywhere despite how scarce one may say it may ever be. I'm saying that you are never alone, you aren't scarce, but you are unique. You will always have your own flow, but do you see the other flows? All the energy at any one time? If you do, the energy of research or technology is not that of which you should always include yourself with. The irony stands to which all things require balance, intentional non-action and intentional action, energy from here, but also energy from the source. When I said, quote, get away from it all, end quote, now you may see it doesn't necessarily mean creating a whole new path, but it does mean knowing who you are among such any current path. And if you can do this, you can live more simply, thereafter knowing the complex. A new path opens for you, and it is one where you are actually a part of the flow and not just going with it. It is one where you contribute, one where you coexist, perhaps help others understand their very existence, so they may best become part of not only helping form your path, but their own at the same time, generation to generation, indeed, kids and offsprings, ideas and seeds, water as one path to that of which is split into more than one, as there indeed must be. It is nature to have path, to have difference. The war one fights against it will end up self-defeated by nature. The one who manipulated it will become defeated by those among any given path to disintegrate from it, with nature as is to another war as long as nature opposes. Nature has flow. Music loses flow as we detach from nature. People are confused about flow when detached from nature. When people seek nature, they seek flow. Obtaining it can be like flowing against the odds, pushing against the wind, swimming on the opposite direction of the whirlpool, essentially not obeying. Just remember what you are flowing against, and if you keep at it, and with enough strength, and with enough of others learning the flow by any means, the flow is changed. Does it become another cycle? Yes, if you seek that flow to stay constant, when in reality any flow is meant to flow. In nature, flows by the entirety of observation may have no meaning to your view upon this, but the water within as life distributed could. A righteous cycle is that of which isn't permanently stuck, that of which nature still steadily holds its course. To think of a flow of water as stream Without life below, as above, and all throughout, is like thinking of a video stream without life. It wouldn't exist. Brainwashing exists, but what you are being brainwashed for and about may actually not be identifiable. You could be thinking of life that isn't of life, despite it being thought of in life. The irony is that all things will always exist in some form, but certain streams are watched more than others. Certain streams are followed more than others. Certain streams are subscribed more than others. To know of the difference of words used there may mean a lot about this whole idea, from see to follow to learn to involve, and it also goes right in that order. You have to question what stream you really are flowing with. If you are involved without following, without seeing, and without learning, and continuing to do so even if it's out of your previous involvement. Therefore, involvement is always necessary to an extent, and you always are involved in something. It doesn't mean you are learning or seeing or following correctly. One path to the next is simply an integration into another, but it is still part of the previous and may always find itself back, but never necessarily the same. You can't get away from all, but you can get away from quote-unquote it. How far do you want to go? All the way? How far can you go all the way from all? Go always, but you can't go all ways, and you shouldn't go ways that isn't of the all. Give it your all for the all. It is nature. It is not which seeks to be the all. If a city is the quote-unquote all you want to get away from, for example, realize why that is. You saw the path, you learned, you were involved, you went with the flow, you know the flow, you see what is all else, and so you go, going away from one and going toward what could be all you needed, all that can keep you content, if that's all you seek, content. Freedom at best, paths, choice, knowledge, learning, flow, all from nature because nature is all.